Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week.
Like, talking about it isn't just good for you, it's good for everyone. Because your bravery can make it a bit easier for someone else, even giving them just that little nudge in the right direction.
There's a great line actually from the therapist who says, this isn't forever, Kai. And you think, oh, that's such a good line, because it's the sort of thing that only a therapist would say, because they've got the knowledge and the training. But also it cuts through that sense that somebody's in a moment and it feels like a perpetual forever.
Even my dad was saying, this is great for dads as well. Like, men over the age of 50 who are in that generation is not spoken about.
And I'll be reminding you how you can make connections with mental health organisations within your community. It's Mental Health Monday.
Welcome to the home of the UK's conversation about mental health. It's Mental Health Monday with me, Mick Coyle. I hope you're well. Thank you for downloading the podcast this week. As ever, you can subscribe and share the podcast through social media. You can also check it out wherever you get your podcasts as well. Always a pleasure to see the growing family of people checking out the show and getting in contact as well with their suggestions for stories, ideas, topics of discussion. We've had some really, really busy weeks. Last week, we heard about James's Place and the brilliant work that they're doing there. We heard from Dr. Nihara Krause the week before that and the work that they've done in regard to young men and speaking with young men and talking to young men about their problems. We also heard from the Mix in the last few weeks as well, talking about some of the money worries that young people are having in these uncertain times. There's always room for more conversations to be had on Mental Health Monday, and as ever, I'll urge you to get in contact with the show. There's a Mental Health Monday Facebook group. You can join that. And you can also get a hold of me on Twitter, where my email address is also readily available. Details to that in the podcast write-up. Brilliant guest this week talking about his new film. It's a new short film called Black Butterflies, created by Dean Gribble. Now, Dean is now based in the south of England. He's originally from Scotland. And throughout the period of lockdown, Dean sought some therapy for some of the issues that he was dealing with, including depression and anxiety, something he experienced, as he'll explain in quite open detail, while he was about to go on stage as an actor during a performance in Bristol. So it's a really interesting conversation, this one. It comes, of course, with a movie that you can also watch. And I say movie, it's a short 13-minute film. It's called Black Butterflies. It's available on YouTube. There's a link in the podcast write-up. But I think it really opens a lot of people's eyes to maybe the journey that people go on when they go into therapy, when they maybe speak to a therapist for the first time, and the narrative of that journey through therapy and getting to grips with how you're feeling. Dean's really keen to share this film out, to get it out there as well. So any likes or recommendations will be very much welcome on that one. And it's a fascinating conversation about the film, how it came about, and how it's touching certain demographics in different ways. Absolutely fascinating, and he's a top guy too. We started off the conversation by talking about how the film originally came about and how it fits into his own mental health journey.
So it started, I think, over lockdown. I think as a lot of people were in a similar position, especially people being out of work, there was a lot of time behind closed doors, not even having the option of working from home. And that's when I started my first bout of therapy, was in lockdown. But unfortunately, with the massive waiting list people had, there was no way of getting it within 9 or 10 months. That was the kind of rough time for waiting lists. So they were trialing this new thing where you did it across some kind of like an MSN Messenger kind of thing. It was free as well. So I was just like, well, I'm going to take any help I can get. Because at that point, I hadn't actually spoken to anyone about it really face to face. Apart from my partner, who I'm still living with at the time. And you got the chat transcripts after you finished each session. So I had that, and that's just kind of how it started. And then I don't know, maybe I wrote it down for sort of excess therapy. I'm not entirely sure, but I think one day, I don't know what happened, I just woke up and just went, I need to write something. It wasn't even with the intention to put it out. It was sort of for my own personal help, and then it's just kind of snowballed from there, and it's turned into what it is now.
If we go back before those therapy sessions were booked in, if you like, what were you experiencing? What was going on in your mind that had led you to reach out?
So it'd been going on for quite a while, to be fair, but at that time I didn't really know what it was. So I'd always suffered with sort of depression to an extent, but I'd never experienced much of the anxiety side of things. And being an actor, there's already a sort of added pressure onto being at certain places because money's involved and all that. And I was doing a theatre show. I was doing a live theatre version of Trainspotting in the film, and we were doing a UK tour. And one night I had to go on in, I think it was in Bristol, and I experienced my first ever panic attack, and I had absolutely no idea what they were. I didn't, because it was one of the things that won't ever happen to me, and it completely wiped me out. And I thought it was like, I was buying Pepto-Bismol the next day. It was one of the things I was just like, oh, I've got a stomach thing, it's fine, da, 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 da. And that's how it all started, and then depression started to tie in with it. And I found it very difficult to tackle them both at the same time. One or the other, you have kind of ways that you can try and get around them, but together it was near on impossible to try and sort it out. So, and then when the lockdown hit, the anxiety kind of stopped because my mind was going, well, everyone else is in the same position as me now. There's no expectations. But then obviously staying inside for the whole time, the depression came back. So I think that was when I thought I'd try and get help while it was at its lowest.
Are you talking in the film when you're in the session with the therapist about the feelings of not wanting to be here anymore? Was that happening? Was that something that was happening specifically to you during that lockdown period?
Yeah. I'd contacted Samaritans a couple of times when I was in the house on my own, and one time I also did contact 999. Which and then when the possibility of help coming, I kind of scared myself out of it. So there was times where it got unbelievably dark. I think because I wasn't telling anyone about it, it was all getting stuck in my own head. And I think also for myself selfishly, but also for my partner who's been sort of amazing throughout the whole thing. She was like, you've got to try and do something about it. Take what you can get, because a lot of people don't have that option. I don't have the bravery to actually talk about it and do something about it. Whereas I did, I was quite open about it. So it was her who kind of pushed me into it, being honest, not myself.
In terms of the film, your character, Kai, talking to the therapist, there's a phrase, I think it's something like, I wish I had a button on the side of my head that I could press so that everyone could sort of see what was going on. And I thought a lot of people will absolutely, I think, relate to that because I think you can see it in the film as well, whereby there's obviously an experience that yourself or the characters sort of going through. And there are opportunities potentially for him and ways out of it, but obviously he can't see it because his head's not in that place. That idea of, I wish I could explain it. We often don't have the skill set, do we, in those circumstances? Because, and I say this all the time on the show, like we don't grow up learning like how to put that into words, those feelings. Other than sounding like you're having a bit of a moan about not feeling great about yourself. Whereas actually, I mean, maybe that's the start of what it is, but it seems to go so much more deeper than that. And that idea that if you could just open up the side of your head and everyone could just look in and go, oh, right, now it makes sense now. Oh, now I understand why Dean is the way he is, or why Kai is the way he is.
Yeah. I think as well, it's a brave thing to open up. And if you explain it and they don't get it, your insecurities are worse because you're like, they don't even get. So you feel more alienated in that situation, and it can become difficult. And I think that was one of the main quotes from the film. Like, talking about it isn't just good for you; it's good for everyone, because your bravery can make it a bit easier for someone else, even giving them just that little nudge in the right direction. Because I was quite selfish around, not selfish in a way, but the film was mainly aimed at men my age. I had written it purely from my perspective and didn't even think about any other part of it. But there's even my dad was saying, this is great for dads as well. Like, men over the age of 50 who are in that generation, especially in the sort of working class you know, who don't, it's not spoken about. So that was another big surprise for me. So I was learning as well. After doing it, I was learning different things, and it was just, it was brilliant.
Absolutely. There's a line in there about a sense of feeling shame as well. I'd convinced myself of my own lack of self-worth. Redemption seemed impossible. Which again, and it ties in with that idea of the ink in the water. In fact, probably you're better explaining this. Explain the ink in the water, because again, it's another of those sort of things which people I think will hear and they'll go, I completely understand where he's coming from when he says that. It makes complete sense.
Yeah, it was a very last minute idea. I'll be honest with you. I was trying to think of something that was going to image based that can kind of describe how quickly a thought could come in, even if you're on a sort of later period. Just one thing, and I was just, it's a drop of something. And I always remember in school when you had water paints, and you dipped it into the fresh water for the first time to clean your brush, and the whole water just went. I don't know why it came into my head, and I was just like, that's brilliant, but I don't want to use a brush going in, look rubbish. I was just like, I can't have a brush going in. And then my DOP Ash, who's brilliant, said, what about ink? So one single drop of ink, and image based as well. It just looks so beautiful as it comes in and kind of circulates in the slow motion. So that was it. It wasn't anything like, I just wanted something that would the sort of the blackness of the ink would be a way of showing a dark thought entering a clear mind.
It also represents, I think, brilliantly, almost, it's not the right word necessarily, but I think often your mind betrays yourself in those sort of circumstances where you're having like an 8 and a 9 out of 10 day, but then you have a 1 out of 10 moment, and then the whole day is wrecked, or your sense of, maybe you're building up a sense of, self-worth, enjoyment, self-esteem. One little phrase, one glance, whatever it might be, just takes you back down to zero. And that can be, and there's probably a reason why your brain does that, but it if you don't know that it's coming your way and then it happens, then bam, it's like, oh, I thought I was getting somewhere. And I'm right back where I started from.
It's so unbelievably frustrating, especially for other people as well. I think if it happens and just because I'm kind of like that in terms of I'm quite methodical in my day to day, and if something like interjects with that, I'm getting a lot better. But I find it hard to, because you've got in the way of the routine. Have the ability just to go, that's fine. It doesn't matter. It's out of your control. Let's move on and try and find another way of getting around it.
Absolutely. It builds into that phrase around resilience, and about how we all try and sort of build resilience. And I think naturally you get it as you get a little bit older. But I think as well, you touch on it as well with older generations, that they think that they've got everything sorted because it's, life is a certain way for a certain period of time. Just looking this week at some stats around, men who reach out to suicidal crisis and, family breakdowns or relationship breakdowns and things like that. It's not the same as a coffee shop being closed, but actually that can happen. That can happen in life, can't it? Whereby something you just presumed would always be the case suddenly isn't the case anymore. And actually it feels like the rug is pulled from underneath you. And we're all going to experience those things in life. Yeah. And I think some of us, are predisposed to maybe dwelling on them for too long or looking too deep into that. But again, there's no rule book that has been set about how we're supposed to deal with that. You hear about people who are supposedly, happy-go-lucky, but they'll have triggers as well. They'll have things whereby they go, oh, actually, no, oh, now I can't cope. This is something which I can't cope with. And we'll all have those things, but you almost have to experience it to find out what that thing is, and then find your way out of it before you can then look back and go, oh, right, yeah, I wish I'd been more aware of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. I think it's clear for people as well, especially people a bit older, when they look back and they go, oh, that's what that was. Like, because it was never even, it was brushed over. It wasn't deemed as anything important. It wasn't labeled as anything. It just kind of got brushed over. And that was fine for that moment. But in later life, it can be a tough thing to look back on, because you're wondering, if I dealt with that there, how could that have, changed the way moving forward. I could have been in maybe a slightly better position than I'm in now. But I think, like I said, the film reaching out to that sort of older generation, especially dads with sons of my age or younger, it gave them the opportunity to check in with sons as well, and giving them, and then sons vice versa, checking in with the dads, and then it opened up that conversation, and I just had never looked at it that way.
So Dad is essentially a character in the film who appears essentially 3 times, but you don't actually really see anything of Dad other than a text message, the phone ringing, and then a phone call towards the end. That's a bit of a spoiler, that one. No, but I think in terms of that, I thought it was interesting because, to me, in many ways, the dad is that. This sounds wrong, but the dad's the hero of the film to a certain extent, because there's a sense that Dad's trying to reach out. Dad's maybe aware that there's a bit of an issue. He even sends like a little bit of a poignant message about how much he cares. And then there's the moment of how the film concludes, that sense that there's a connection is finally made. And I was always watching going, like when Dad's ringing at the start, answer the phone, and just answer the phone and talk to you. Clearly your dad wants to speak to you, just speak to him. But there's that sense where, you're not worthy of it, or that if you speak to somehow your experiences will infect into another person, or they'll be able to see through you. And that sense of shame kicks in again. And like I say, the dad, you don't hear the dad speak at all, but I got a sense that was the offer of hand. That was the helping hand that you don't often necessarily recognize, because you don't see it as a helping hand, but it was there. And actually, in your character's case, as portrayed in the film, it was always there for him if he'd have had the strength to reach out, or if he had the knowledge about, the offer of support that was there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, it being a support network for Kai, because even the fallout from the film as well is that people who have been a bit older have said like really lovely things like, God, I wish I had a dad who I could do that with. And just like how unbelievably lucky I am, and to have supportive parents who I can reach out to at a time of need. And yes, Kai's loosely based off my own experiences, how I actually didn't want to contact, because not from sort of my end of things, but more they'd be annoyed at themselves for not seeing the signs. They'd be annoyed at themselves for like, oh, why didn't I notice that when so and so was like this and so and so. So then you're putting stress onto them because of your own issues. So that makes it's a snowball effect. So I think it's important to know that you have that support network out there. And I didn't think that it was necessary to hear a dad's voice. I toyed with an idea of him coming in, and I don't think it's necessary. I think just a simple photo and a couple of phone calls will give everything you need to see. And within the sort of time frame that I had, I think it seemed to have worked.
Well, if you've got people who've watched the film and said, "I wish I had a dad like that," when you actually created a character that doesn't actually exist, or say that's a measure to how strong that character comes across in those sort of almost moments of need, if you like. It's interesting, that intergenerational thing as well. I wonder if that plays into a wider sort of thing that goes on in society. And I certainly, this was my experience, that you think that when you become almost like an adult, you think you're supposed to have sort of like got it sussed. Like you feel like you should be able to cope at that point. Like you should be able to deal with everything because you're a grown up now. And if you can't deal with it, you look at your parents and you think, well, they can deal with it, but I can't. And I look at your group of friends and, well, they all seem to be doing okay, but I'm not. And I think, and then in reality, your friends are probably experiencing the exact same things, and your parents are still experiencing the exact same thing. But we grow up in a world, don't we, where it's like you're a child, you're a grown up, you're a parent, and of course, and it's like this evolution that's like a steady journey through self-awareness and understanding and all that kind of stuff. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that's not the case. And actually, if you did have a conversation with your dad about suicidal thoughts, he might be absolutely petrified. He might be thinking, God, I'm completely, I'm not equipped to deal with this. They may even think, well, actually, this is actually something which I've experienced, but I've never had the ability to talk about. as well. And I think there's something in that, absolutely, about that generational growth that we're supposed to have. And I think it's much more of an up and a down and a roller coaster than it ever is, this thing that, you just gradually learn more and become a better person. I just don't think that's the case.
I think it makes you a stronger person, talking about it personally. I think if you're battling with it day to day, you're bulletproof. You are a person I think I've learned more about myself in the 2 years that I've had it than I ever would have if I hadn't experienced it. Not saying that I should have it, but I'm just meaning, like, there is ways that you can look at it, and it's changed me as a person. It's made me more conversational, and this is the first thing I've ever written, directed, produced ever. Like, I'd never attempted, and obviously with the subject, I was more worried about the film than the subject matter. I was saying, the subject matter's fine, and I got 3 days before filming, I went, I need to learn my lines. I was like, oh, I need to learn my lines. I was just so, like, out of it, and I was so busy doing other things. I think I didn't scare myself that I was doing a subject matter of this kind of caliber, and it was just, I don't know. I feel like I would have had the confidence to write something and produce it myself if it was a comedy or if it was a slap. I don't think I would have, and I think that because I've went through this sort of raw experience myself, I think I was just like, I think I had to write about it, and I had to put it out there to see if other people related, but also if other people were feeling the same way, especially after the lockdown.
Do you think that sort of self-reflection that you've been able to sort of experience yourself, do you think that's based on, or do you think that comes from having those therapy sessions that you're asked almost to look at yourself from a slightly different point of view? Maybe.
I didn't find the online therapy that helpful. I think the face-to-face element was lost on me a little bit, because I couldn't even picture what my therapist looked like. And that was another issue that I had coming to the film, is that I didn't know what age. You've got assumptions of what age you would like. But I think that the girl Beth, who I ended up casting, who I adore, who's one of my close friends, I ended up casting her because she was in the process from the start with me. She was like, read original scripts and stuff, and I think for the first project I wanted to have as the set as a safe space of people that I knew well, I was comfortable with, because of the subject matter and it being the sort of first thing. And because I was originally looking at women aged 45 to that kind of in the blazer with the legs crossed, going, so how do you feel? And that's how a lot of some films do portray it as. Whereas I remember watching The Sopranos, and Tony Soprano's relationship with his therapist, you couldn't tell whether it was therapy or they were mates, and there was that blurred line, and I really loved that because it was a lot more open and it wasn't as robotic. And I think that's the direction that I decided to go in, and I'm so glad that I did.
There's a great line actually from the therapist who says, "This isn't forever, Kai." And you think, oh, that's such a good line, because it's the sort of thing that only a therapist would say, because they've got the knowledge and the training. But also it cuts through that sense that somebody's in a moment and it feels like a perpetual forever. And actually them just going, this isn't forever. Which I think is a really strong. Was that genuine line from a therapist?
Yeah,
or, yeah.
All the therapy lines were from transcripts that I'd taken from the online sessions. Yeah,
and I think there's that. I don't know. There's that professional element, which again, and I was almost joking about this with a guest a couple of weeks ago about the old American TV shows where you go and see a therapist, like, oh God, I've been to see my therapist,
and you're on the couch facing the other way, and they're behind you, and it's like,
and it's a bit like, and I know it was either a strange thing to talk about or a strange thing to just have in your life, but actually they clearly have this sort of, it's like a two-way conversation, which is heavily led in one of those directions as well. And I guess those people who've got a really great relationship with a therapist will really find that really helpful. But it's interesting that you still found those sort of pearls of wisdom, even though you maybe felt you didn't quite get that connection that you were hoping for.
There was bits after, because I did like 10 weeks, so it was, we chatted about a lot, and I printed all the pages out, and I was just finding moments that the conversation really got going. it tended to be in the later stages because you were still finding your feet. At the start, I wasn't really sure how to approach it, and but like you said, there was pearls of wisdom everywhere, and it was just finding the order of where I want to put these, because it wasn't necessarily an order of how the weeks went, but I just was just finding it and managed to find some kind of order to it.
Absolutely. The film is called Black Butterflies. It's available now. It's on YouTube and various different formats that people will be able to find online. It's only like 13, 14 minutes long, so it's like it's coffee break sort of stuff. But I think people will watch it and they'll absolutely sort of resonate with a lot. In terms of the feedback, though, can I ask you about this, Dean? What's been the main thing that people have come back to you with once they've seen the film?
So it's been very, very overwhelming in terms of the feedback, because I originally only shared it with close family and friends. I didn't put it public first just because I wanted to test the water a little bit and see where I wanted to take it. But the main I knew people my age would relate to it, especially after lockdown. But some of sort of my dad's and my missus sort of parents, their friends age 50 and up who've watched it and have come back and have started admitting things to me. I've never ever, and it put me in a position where, like I said, I'd looked at it purely from my selfish point of view of people my age, and the fact that it was striking a chord with people of all ages was just the most unbelievable thing. And like going back to the comment earlier, I wish I had a dad to talk about it with, and just I couldn't believe it, being honest. And it's been unbelievably overwhelming, and this is part and parcel of the reason that I've started now of recent to really start to throw it out there, not only as a film, but I've wanted to send it on to different mental health charities, because I know young people don't want to talk about it, and it's trying to, especially men, and I want to be out there and try and break that stigma ever so slightly, and just give a bit of an assist because I know if I needed something like this when I was going through, and just that, because I remember the first time I heard someone talk about mental health on telly and I related to it, it was almost like someone just put like an arm on my shoulder, and I was just like, yes, that's it. So I want to provide the same thing.
Do you remember what it was? What was that first thing on TV? Can you remember?
It was from a show on Amazon called Modern Love, about couples who, it was all based on love letters that had been sent to the New York Times. And a guy had explained anxiety, saying it was like he felt it like a thin mist rolling in, a bit like the cloudiness of your mind. And I just went, oh my God, that's it. And I just had that moment, and my missus went, what? I was like, that's it. That's how I feel. And then,
that's great. I think that's such a good advert for why we should have sort of that well-informed and educated sort of representation on TV, because so many people will see it and they'll go, oh, right. And we've had this many times where, and I forget, somebody emailed the program to say, I've had these feelings, but I've never had the words to be able to express what these feelings are. But listening to other people talk about it, I now feel better equipped. I think that's why that representation and correctly representing sort of mental health, or offering people a platform to explain their own stories, I think is really, really valuable as well. And I think there's something in that sense as well, that once you get through an experience, or once you're getting to grips with an experience, the idea that, as you've shown with the film, you almost own your own narrative, that actually from a position of perceived weakness, people then see you as a pillar of strength, someone who they can share their feelings with. Now, we know that you're not a psychiatrist or a therapist, but actually, I think that's another sign of the strength that people see in people who speak out. They suddenly go, oh, he'll understand me, or I can talk to him because he'll get it, or even if I don't have the right words, he'll know where I'm coming from as well, which I think is a testament to how well you've put this sort of subject across on screen.
Thank you. Well, and also I think I'm one. I don't know if other people feel the same, but when I'm at my lowest, I'm at my most creative, and it's one of the things. It's a bit like a fence in between two gardens. You need to find a way to get up and over it. And I think when being my lowest, I'm most creative. The creativity can take me up and over because I can talk about it, so it doesn't feel as alien in the situation. So the creativity allows me to get up and over and beyond any sort of pain or anger that I'm feeling at the time. So I think because I wrote this at my lowest point as well, and I just think anything to do with art is one of the most underfunded, powerful tools that we have to express anything towards mental health. And at situations like this, the options of podcasts and TV is starting to explore it a little bit more as well, because we were stuck, like we were saying earlier, like kids watching the American backwards facing couch, and that was it's not relevant to us. Especially there wasn't really anything that relatable to them. So I think art is unbelievably powerful as a tool, and I welcome anyone to try and even just give it a shot. That's
absolutely. And the thing you made, by the way, Dean, we should say this is of real quality. When you're looking at it, you're not thinking this is something that has been, thrown together in lockdown with a couple of iPhones. Like it looks like something that appears on your TV screens, right, and on your cinema screens.
Yeah, it was I believed that it would work, so I applied for the funding, and they got back to me very quickly and went, you could not find a better time to put something out like this. And I started filming, so I got that just after lockdown 2. Lockdown 2.
Yeah, we've all lost track of that.
2.4. I don't know. It was the March or the April of this year, and then just getting everything together with restrictions and tears and just trying to find everything together. But the film across took 2 days to film, which I thought was, because short space of time, I was funding it all on my own. It was my best mate, one of my good mates, Ash, who I did it with, who's based in Birmingham. And I just, because I'd originally went with another company and it had fallen through, because they said the message was too cliche. And I went, it's kind of the point. But I was just like, right, okay, and that kind of gave me more of a driving force to go, no, that's not the way to look at it. This needs to go further. So I messaged my mate Ash, and I was like, can I do this for you? He went, yeah, when do you want to do it? I was like, then. He went, cool, I'll meet you in an hour on Zoom to edit it. And I went, great, and that was it. No questions asked. So yeah, it's a great quality for Ash is brilliant, and I'm just glad the work came from the page and looked exactly like how I imagined it as well.
Do you have a dream in terms of what you hope to achieve, or what you hope the film achieves?
Just conversation with people. Like this is it, and giving people the confidence to try it themselves. I think in the long run, I'd like to open up some kind of small film-based festival somewhere in the UK to give people a platform to come and show their work. Because I think there's, because I've been submitting the film to some festivals as well. A lot of them you have to pay for. Not all of them you have to pay for. Just to even if you're selected. Whereas I would quite like to do not a scratch night as such, but just like a night where people can come and present, and we can chat after it, and we can grab pizzas in and just have a discussion. I think that's what I'd like to go for. But in terms of the film alone, I want to just keep pushing it, giving it a platform. I want to keep pushing it out to charities out there. I want to keep giving it away as such. I'm not looking for anything from it. I want to use it as a platform for other people to use and give them the confidence to conversate and take a bit of pressure off.
It's a brilliant film. Like I say, it's a short film. People can enjoy it during a coffee break or a tea break. You can watch it on your phone, but you can even stick it on the big screen if you've got it as well. It's called Black Butterflies. It's available on YouTube. I'll put a link up through the podcast as well. The creator writer is Dean Gribble, and he's our guest on Mental Health Monday this week. Dean, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mick. I really appreciate your time.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You can also find me, Mick Coyle, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, if you want to speak to somebody about your mental health, you can do so. The Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. You can find mental health services where you are. Just look for the Hub of Hope. Type in your postcode. It'll find those mental health services close to you. And for support in a crisis, you can text SHOUT to 85258. That's if you're experiencing a personal crisis, you're unable to cope and need support. Shout to 85258. That's a text line. Do get involved in those services. In an absolute emergency, always remember the number to call is 999. Thanks for downloading the podcast this week. We'll be back next week with more Mental Health Monday.